Hello everyone, welcome back to Venkanna EnglishGURU. Due to my some busy schedule, I could not take the class yesterday. So, friends, in this video, we are actually talking about history of English literature. As a part of history of English literature, and where we have started periods of English literature, and we are into Victorian period. And as a part of this Victorian period, where we discussed in my first video on Victorian period introduction, second Victorian period and the characteristics of the literature that is composed during Victorian period. In third video, where I spoke about literary groups and movements that were so popular from 1832 to 1901. And in the last video, and where we discussed what are the important literary techniques, poetic techniques that were popularized by a number of writers like Matthew Arnold or Robert Browning or G.M. Hopkins. So friends, in this video, as a part of history of Victorian period, where I'm going to give you important dates that you can remember. Okay, so see friends, and the important dates, and the list goes on. 1832, beginning of Victorian period, and 1832, passage of first reform bill was passed, and this first reform bill and the Poor Law Act, and which created the classification of Victorian people, the classification of the British people into poor, low, and middle class people, and that was the major reason for the evolution of socialism or communism, I can say. 1832 and passage the first reform bill. 1833 Oxford movement, friends, where we discussed, and a group of revolutionaries like John Cabot, J.B. Puzzey, Cardinal Newman, J.H. Newman, and the leader John Cabot started a movement, a revolution against the Poor Law Act, and the passing of the first reform bill, and which was passed in the Britain Parliament against these two, and the Oxford movement began. And 1836, Sketch of Boz, and the first novel that is composed by Charles Dickens. Boz, as I told you, and this is the pen name of Charles Dickens. Oliver Twist, 1837, and the accession of Queen Victoria, the period from 1837 to 1901, and where you can find Queen Victoria became the ruler of England, and she died in 1901, and this period is considered to be the reign of uh, Queen Victoria. 1838, Nicholas Nickleby, friends, and I wanted to tell you something. And Charles Dickens was the major important novelist who published all his novels through serials. Remember this. So, who of the following novelist published all his novels into serials? Charles Dickens. Very, very important, my friends. So, and on heroes and hero worship and the heroic in history. This is a popular essay by John Ruskin, and Thomas Carlyle, and past and present Thomas Carlyle. These two are the popular essays that were about the social issues like child labor and the problems of the downtrodden and the poor class people and working class people. And these two essays that influenced Charles Dickens to write a number of social novels, realistic novels. And Charles Dickens once, couple of times, he quoted these two important essays which were written by Thomas Carlyle. Thomas Carlyle, one of the major important prophets of English literature, and who inspired and American transcendentalists like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Herman Melville, Nathaniel Hawthorne, Margaret Fuller were greatly influenced by the writings of Thomas Carlyle. Very, very important, my friends. You need to know, because there is a lot of connection between and Thomas Carlyle and American literature, mainly American transcendentalism, American individualism, or American Renaissance or Romanticism, which I can say. And 1843, A Christmas Carol, and this is the major important widely read novel and about the eve of Christmas, composed by Charles Dickens. And 1845, The Two Nations, Benjamin Disraeli. Benjamin Disraeli was the prime minister of the time, and who also became a part of historical novelist, and this is one of the examples for historical novel. And as we discussed, as a part of romanticism, Sir Walter Scott, Harrison Ainsworth, Benjamin Disraeli, Edward Bulwer Lytton. These are the four important historical novelists who published a number of historical novels from 1820s. And 1845, friends, very, very important feminist essay, as a part of this Victorian and Romantic period, where I quoted a wonderful essay that is first feminist essay, a vindication of rights of women, a vindication of rights of men. So both are the articles, and feminist and first one, vindication of rights of women, published in 1791, and this is considered to be the first feminist novel, and the second one, Women in the 19th Century. Wonderful feminist essay, second feminist essay, that is composed by Margaret Fuller. So, Margaret Fuller. So this is considered to be the second feminist essay, and which talks about the rights of women, status of women, plight of women, and during the 19th century. So women in the 19th century, subjection of women, J.S. Mill, and these three are the very influential texts with regard to feminism before 20th century, before the publication of A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, Next, 1847, Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights, very popular, important Gothic novels, my friends. As a part of this Romantic period, where we discussed the period from 1796 to 1800 is considered to be the Gothic novel period, and which is popularized by William Godwin, William Beckford, Anne Radcliffe, Matthew Gregory Lewis, and Mary Shelley. And there are plenty of writers, but these were the four major important Gothic novelists, and these two are the best examples for Gothic novels. You should not ask me a question, what is Gothic novel? Because I spoke about what is Gothic novel, examples for Gothic novel, characteristics of Gothic novel in my previous videos. And Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights, very, very important, my friends. Friends, when you talk about Wuthering Heights, there is a character called Heathcliff. And there is also another character, Jane Eyre, where you can find a character called Bertha Rochester. And that lady is actually called Mad Women in the Attic. Very popular figure. Several times this bit featured in the examinations like NET, SET, and UPSC other examinations with regard to English literature. Even when I qualified, there was a bit, and a Mad Woman in the Attic. This is actually character figures in, who is actually Bertha Rochester, figures in Jane Eyre. Next, Wuthering Heights, Catherine Heathcliff's very popular characters. And 1848, Vanity Fair and William Thackeray. And this Vanity Fair, which is called A Novel Without a Hero. And Anne's second novel, The Tenants, Anne Bronte, and The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. And friends, and this is a common thing, and like your video while watching, share our video to your friends who are not into the class. Share, like, and comment, and inform, and become a part of the knowledge hub that I want to create in you. So, next, 1850, very, very important date as a part of Victorian period is 1850. And there are many significant events that took place in 1850, my friends. Death of Wordsworth, And Death of Wordsworth, 1850, the prelude, the autobiography of Wordsworth was published by his wife, Mary Atkinson. That is a popular epic composed by Wordsworth in blank verse. And 1850, Sonnets from Portuguese. It's a collection of 44 important sonnets. Friends, as I told you, what is sonnet? Sonnet cycle, sonnet sequence. This is an example for sonnet cycle or sequence. So sonnet cycle or sequence, which means collection of 3 or more sonnets. Sonnets from Portuguese, which includes 44 sonnets, my friends. All these are love songs. Her love towards and her beloved Robert Browning. How do I love thee? The popular sonnet. The popular sonnet that is addressed and dedicated to Robert Browning. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee with my smile. I love thee with my tears. I love thee with my, even after my death. It's a very wonderful poem, and you also enjoy when you read it. And 1850, Alpha Lord Tennyson, because as you know, as previously we discussed, and 1843 to 1850, Wordsworth worked as a poet laureate. After the death of Wordsworth, and Alpha Lord Tennyson became the poet laureate and continued from 1850 to 1892. Very important. And 1850, the Germ. Friends, we discussed, and the pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, and which is actually a kind of inspiration from the 14th century Italian painter, the Raphael. Raphael, who inspired a number of poets and painters of 19th century, pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, where we discussed a number of writers like Daisy Rosti, Dante Gabriel Rosti, Krishna Rosti, William Morris, C.C. Swinburne, George Meredith, J. Millais, T. Woolnor, Ford Modoxford, Frederick George Stephens. All these were the popular figures as a part of pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. And these pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood published, they were associated with a wonderful magazine. The title is The Germ. And this Germ issued 4 important volumes issues in 1850. This is very important. Actually, this Germ has a subtitle I forgot to inform. Just check through in Google if you like so, because it appeared a couple of times in the history of NET or other examinations. 1850, another important work by Charles Dickens, the autobiography, Buildings Roman, Tunstall Roman, autobiographical novel by Charles Dickens, David Copperfield, and Buildings Roman. 1850 in memoriam, friends. And this is a popular, it is also an example for sonnet cycle or sonnet sequence, composed by Alfred Tennyson. The pastoral elegy. Elegy refers to a poem that is composed on the death, and the pastoral elegy refers to a poem that is composed on the death of an important person. This is the small change. So this is an example for pastoral elegy on the death of Arthur Henry Hallam, and composed in 131 sonnets from 1833 to 1850. And Alfred Tennyson took more than 27 years to compose these 131 sonnets. And 1853, The Bleak House, Charles Dickens. And this is one of the Gothic novels. And The New Cosmos, friends, this is very important. Composed by W.M. Thackeray, a kind of alternating. So, and there are bits. What is the ending line of this novel, beginning line of this novel? Or there are some of the writers during this Victorian period, they used 2, 3 alternative endings. And this novel includes a kind of alternating ending. Instead of one ending, one conclusion, where W.M. Thackeray included second conclusion, second ending line. That's what you need to remember. Next, like John Fowles, The French Lieutenant Woman, which is a popular novel written by John Fowles, this novel also includes alternative ending to the novel. So there is a kind of similarity. And The Little Diary of Charles Dickens, Aurora Leigh, the autobiographical work of Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and prose autobiography. This is composed in the form of prose. And Female Prelude, this is also called Female Prelude. And Life Story of a Woman Writer, a portrait of artist as young, not man, young woman. The popular lines which describe Aurora Leigh. And 1859, Charles Darwin theory, as you are aware, on the origin of species, popularized by Charles Darwin. 1859, A Tale of Two Cities. It's a wonderful novel that talks about the French Revolution, how the people of France revolted against the kings and killed all of them in 1789 during the French Revolution. That's what the story of French and A Tale of Two Cities, London and Paris. And this novel figures in London and Paris, 2 settings, and historical novel, my friends, remember. Next, Great Expectation, Charles Dickens, 1862, The Modern Love, very, very important one, composed by George Meredith, a very sensitive novelist of Victorian period, and he is remembered not as a novelist, as the most important poet of Victorian period. And this includes collection of 50 16-line sonnet, 16 line, and 16-line sonnet that is created by George Meredith, 11 line and James Hopkins, 10 lines John Keats, 14 lines Shakespeare and other writers. And the Modern Love, this which includes 50 important, this is also sonnet cycle or sonnet sequence, my friends, remember. So this is all about the decline of marriage system, love, marriage, failure. 3 important things that he actually talks about in The Modern Love. That's what is actually happening today in the modern world, you can see. And that's what the daughter of Thomas Lowe Peacock, who is the wife of George Meredith. 1860, The Mill on the Floss, George Eliot. As I told you, George Eliot, Charlotte Bronte, Emily Bronte, Anne Bronte, and Elizabeth Barrett Browning, popular female writers who spoke a lot about women's rights, child labor, women's status, economic freedom of women, financial individuality of a woman, and the social status of a woman in the society. So these are the major issues that were discussed by George Eliot in our novels. One of them, Mill on the Floss, Our Mutual Friend, the last novel by Charles Dickens, and Das Kapital, as you know, and written by Karl Marx, and Culture and Anarchy, where this is actually composed by Matthew Arnold, where he actually coined a number of terms, and one of them is Philistinism. Philistinism, which means re-evaluation of works of literature or art. And Middlemarch, George Eliot, Thomas Hardy's first novel Under the Greenwood Tree, and the first and what I can say, regional, first English, father of a regional novel in English, Thomas Hardy, simply we can say. Wessex, the popular place where he actually composed. 1872, Middlemarch, George Eliot, 1870, Under the Greenwood Tree, Thomas Hardy, Far from the Madding Crowd, and Thomas Hardy, The Wreck of Deutschland, James Hopkins, and this Wreck of Deutschland, where it actually includes Death of Five Nuns. So, couple of times this bit featured, Death of Five Nuns, that actually features in Dash poem. So, Wreck of Deutschland, written by James Hopkins, in this he actually talks about inscape, in stress, sprung rhythm, and all other issues. And the concept of cuddle sonnet is also included as a part of this. John and James Hopkins and took inspiration from writers like John Donne and George Herbert, some of the religious poets where he actually composed this. And 1876 autobiography. The title of the text is autobiography. It is the autobiography of Anthony Trollope. And the Treasure Island, Harold Stevenson. Harold Stevenson, as you know, he had a pen name, Tusitola. Tusitola. This is the pen name of Harold Stevenson. He was actually from Tusitola, which means teller of stories, narrator of stories. So once you read the novels of Harold Stevenson, and you feel as if somebody is narrating stories to you. So most of the school kids and books or ICS or CBS, any of the texts, and which include and the stories from R.L. Stevenson, Treasure Island, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's a popular novel by R.L. Stevenson. The Mayor of the Casterbridge, The Man of Character, subtitle, wonderfully written by Thomas Hardy. Next, 1891, Tess of the Devils, subtitle, A Pure Woman. So, another important novel by Thomas Hardy. If, the title of the text is If, it's written by Rudyard Kipling. Rudyard Kipling, the first Nobel laureate, the first person who was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1907, Rudyard Kipling, remember. So, The Jungle Book, and Rudyard Kipling, and he is actually so popular for a concept called jingoism. Actually, I told you, jingoism, the process of narrating and the process of making a part of both animate, inanimate objects together. So where animate and with and an object with and human beings, where they interact with non-human things. That is actually a concept which is created by one of the popular writers, Rudyard Kipling. Jude the Obscure, the last novel by Thomas Hardy. And 1895, last novel, Jude the Obscure. 1895, Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Honest. Telling, it's a pop, and as I told you previously, and Oscar Wilde was one of the major important dramatists, late Victorian period, composed some of the interesting creative literature, but people did not accept, and he was prosecuted and put under bars for a couple of times out of shame, died in 1896, and composed, created characters like homosexual, man-man relationships, women-women relationships. So this is one of that. Teleni, it's a homosexual novel. 1901, The Death of Queen Victoria. 1892, if you want. 1892, and Death of Alpha Lord Tennyson. And first art critic John Ruskin, Hardy's novel. This is what I wanted to talk about, my friends. Due to some difficult constraints, I could not take up the class yesterday. Forget about it, and we'll continue the class tomorrow, same time. Like our video, share our video to your friends and classmates who are serious about learning English literature. Okay, learning literature for various competitive examinations apart from academics. See you tomorrow.